And once you have gone through it, then leave a green check on the feedback window. Good. All right, it's 10:35. We have to start now. Okay, I'm going to clear the feedback. So the rest of this question is somewhat familiar with the last one. It's note number 2, 3, and 4 that I will describe first. They are connected. And then we will start solving this question. You will complete at least the income statement within this time. Or then I will post this as an assignment as well, right? So you will send your work. And after this question, we will leave HR at home. Next week, we have on-campus classes, so you're going to bring the other book to the class. You can leave this book at home then, after that, after this chapter. Okay, so let's go through this. Our financial year, the first thing that we need to identify, our financial year is 31st March 2016. That means 1st April 2015 से वो शुरू होता है और 31st March 2016 पे ख़त्म होगा. And then we have the usual trial balance. We have the discounts allowed and discount received. We know how to treat them. There is carriage inwards and carriage outwards as well. So we are familiar with all of these beforehand. We have the provisions for depreciations, and now there is provision for doubtful debts here. Just a second. Recording is going. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to go through adjustment number 2, 3, and 4, and we will dissect that part. Sales include goods which are sent on a sale or return basis who has not yet indicated acceptance of these goods, and the goods cost $3,000 and the customer has been invoiced for $4,000. Okay, let me first explain what do we mean by sales made or goods which are sent on sale or return basis. This is something that usually businesses do in order to improve their turnover. What they do is, let's say if I am your regular customer, so what you do is, I never inquired for any goods, लेकिन आपके पास कोई नई lot आई थी stock of goods की, और मैंने चूँकि inquire नहीं किया था, लेकिन just to induce me for a buying decision, you will send these goods to me. If I like these goods, I'll keep them and I'll inform you. And if I don't like these goods, you can always have them collected later on. This is just a marketing thing businesses do. But the point over here is, if you send me goods on a sale or return basis and you have not received any acceptance, or I have not indicated my intention to buy these goods from you, these goods are not sold. These goods remain unsold until or unless you receive some sort of a confirmation from your customer that the customer is buying these goods. But as this information suggests here, the sales include goods which are sent on a sale or return basis, but the customer has not yet indicated any acceptance for these goods. So that means, technically speaking, as per the principle of accruals or realization or matching, these goods remain unsold. These goods should have been considered as sales if you have received some sort of a confirmation from your customer. But since there is no confirmation yet, that means these goods are not sold. However, we made an error, we made a mistake, we included them as our sales, right? So if you understand that the sales value given here in the question is wrong, and in fact it is overstated by $4,000, then please give me a green check. If you think that sales are wrong, sales are overstated because they include a sale of goods which never actually happened because you never received any confirmation from your customer. So your sales value includes a certain amount of sales which never actually took place. So we should adjust this sales value and we should subtract $4,000 from there. Give me a green check if you do understand that, right? Mehreen, Minal, Fajr? Fajr?
Excuse me, sir.
जी बेटे हाँ okay so Fajr ने
Sir,
question
the goods cost
yeah go ahead Alina.
The goods cost $3,000, but the customer had been invoiced for $4,000.
Yeah,
Shouldn't that be counted as an error?
absolutely.
Because $1,000.
Absolutely, good question. Actually, I forgot to mention this part. So okay, let's go down again. When we use the term invoice, right? Basically, invoiced over here means invoice. जब आप goods खरीदते हैं तो आप उसका cost पे record करते हैं. But when you sell these goods, you invoice your customers at the selling price. Obviously, when you sell these goods, you sell them at a higher price to make profits. So when the term invoiced here is used, basically it means the selling price. So the question over here is, if you mistakenly treated some part of your inventory as sales, would you have included this amount in your sales account at cost $3,000 or at selling price $4,000? That's the question. So since it was invoiced at $4,000, or in other words, it means the selling price of the goods were $4,000, whereas the cost is $3,000. So your sales account always include the selling prices. That is why we subtracted. That is why we chose Fajr. That is why we chose $4,000 to be subtracted, because it is understood that sales account always reflects the selling prices. So the selling price in this particular situation is $4,000. $3,000 is the cost of the goods. We'll come to $3,000 adjustment in a bit. But right now we need to understand that we have Iman has joined quite late. Okay. So we have actually recorded these goods in our sale account as $4,000, and that is why sales account needs an adjustment of $4,000. So we'll come to $3,000 later on. But Alina and Fajr, do we understand sales account needs to be adjusted by $4,000, not $3,000, because $4,000 is the selling price, not $3,000. Okay, good. Now, the second part, we know that every transaction is entered on the basis of the principle of duality. So ये तो नहीं हो सकता कि सिर्फ sales account में आपने ये सिर्फ sales record की होंगी. Obviously, there is another account involved for this error, and that must be your trade receivables here. That also means that your trade receivables are also overstated by $4,000, right? Because जब आप sales करते हैं तो अगर मैं आपका customer हूँ तो आप मेरे अकाउंट को डेबिट करेंगे और सेल्स अकाउंट को क्रेडिट करेंगे विद $4,000. तो सेल्स अकाउंट को तो हमने यहाँ पे ठीक कर दिया. We fixed the sales account over here by subtracting $4,000, right? There you go. But this is not possible that just the sales account needs fixing. Trade receivables are also wrong because trade receivables also include a customer who was never your customer, who never showed any indication that he or she is going to buy these goods. So we also need to fix trade receivables. So if we understand the second adjustment for goods sent on a sale or return basis, then give me a green check. Right? Okay. So that means whenever goods are sent on sale or return basis, your sales, and you mistakenly record them as sales, because these are not sales actually, unless your customer gives you some sort of a confirmation these are not your sales. So if you ever come across such a problem, then you should know beforehand that your sales value is overstated, it's wrong and overstated, and not just the sales value. your trade receivables value is also wrong and overstated. So that is what we just did by fixing these two values. But then there is a third item also, which is subject to a mistake here. Can you spot the third item which could be wrong here? I will explain the third item as well. Remember, goods sent on a sale or return basis, it always involves three items to be adjusted. Out of these three, two have been fixed. Sales have been fixed, trade receivables have been fixed. Inventory, Fajr, Maheen, Merceline, very good. Closing inventory is also wrong. Now, why is closing inventory wrong? Remember, goods were sent on a sale or return basis to your customer. These goods were not sold, and that means these goods belong to you. However, these goods are lying with your customer. So obviously, the closing inventory value that you calculated over here is not correct. It's not complete. It's missing a part of the inventory which is not physically lying in your premises. Those goods were lying with your customers. So we agree that this inventory is understated, and that is why we should add the cost of the inventory to our cost of the closing inventory. Remember, closing inventory is always valued at cost. So the cost given here is $3,000, and that $3,000 cost actually belongs to your closing inventory here, right? So the three items which will always be affected if goods sent on a sale or return basis are mistakenly treated as sales, the three items which will always be affected are going to be your closing inventory, which is understated, and your trade receivables and sales, which are overstated. And that's how we will fix note number 2. So if you agree with the treatment of note number 2, then give me a final green check here quickly. Iman? Iman brother?
Yes, sir.
हाँ बेटे, आपने मिस कर दिया एक्चुअली इंट्रो, दैट्स व्हाई यू डोंट अंडरस्टैंड, राइट?
Yes, sir.
हाँ, सो जब भी गुड्स सेल और रिटर्न बेसिस पे आप किसी को भेजते हैं वो गुड्स बिके नहीं होते, तो आपने उसको अपनी सेल्स में इंक्लूड कर दिया, आपने उसको ट्रीट कर दिया एज सेल्स, बिकॉज सी द नोट नंबर 2 says the sales include goods sent on a sale or return basis. So sales value includes it. So that means your sales are overstated by 4,000. Your trade receivables are overstated by 4,000. So you subtract 4,000 from these two values ताकि आपकी sales और आपके trade receivables actual, correct and realistic values को reflect करें. That is what we did before you came. And then thirdly, your closing inventory also is wrong because closing inventory का एक हिस्सा आपके customer के पास पड़ा हुआ है और वो $3,000 costing goods थे. Closing inventory हमेशा cost पे value होती है, so हम closing inventory के against cost add करेंगे और आपकी जो trade receivables और sales की values हैं वो selling prices के साथ record करते हैं, so वहाँ पे हम selling prices, जो invoice का मतलब होता है selling price, right? So invoice को वहाँ पे हम adjust करेंगे. Do we understand, Iman?
Yes, sir.
Good. Now, moving on to the next adjustment. The trade receivables include debts totaling $1,700 which are known to be irrecoverable. So we know these are bad debts. So our trade receivables are going to be subject to another adjustment for bad debts. So we find the trade receivables, and the trade receivables are going to be subject to another deduction of $1,700. And these $1,700 of bad debts will also be treated as an expense in the income statement, just like we did yesterday's question, right? These are your bad debts, and these bad debts are going to be included in the income statement as an expense, and these are also going to be subtracted from your trade receivables because your trade receivables have gone bad, and these people are never going to settle their debt, so there is no need to keep them in your trade receivables, so we subtract them, $1,700. We understand note number 3? Good. Feedback, please. Adia? Adia, we understand? Good. Now coming to the fourth part. The provision for doubtful debts is to be adjusted in order to include a specific provision of 3100 and a general provision of 5%. Remember, provision for doubtful debts, which means likely bad debts in future, it's a general assumption. So when we express a provision for doubtful debts as a percentage rate like here, that means that we can't identify a specific person. So that is why we make a general assumption that out of all the remaining debtors, 5% of the amount owed will be overall, sorry, amount ka 5% is going to be lost by way of future bad debts. So a general provision is, it has a very important inherent property that you cannot identify a specific person who's likely to go bad in future. That is why you create a 5% or a 10% or an 8% जो भी percentage rate है provision for doubtful debts का आप एक generally assume करते हैं और फिर उसको आप overall remaining debtors पे apply कर देते हैं because you can't identify a specific person. However, when you create a specific provision, you can pinpoint an individual who is most likely going to go bad. So हम बैड डेट्स में और प्रोविजन फॉर डाउटफुल डेट्स के अंदर जो डिस्टिंक्शन करते हैं वो इसी बेसिस के ऊपर करते हैं कि बैड डेट्स के अंदर अनसर्टेनिटी का एलिमेंट कम है, whereas provision for doubtful debts में uncertainty element is more dominating. But when it comes to a specific provision, then you should agree on that the uncertainty, the element of uncertainty has gone down. Because now you can identify a person who's about to go bad. So a specific provision for all accounting purposes is exactly the same as a bad debt. So just like we treat a normal regular bad debts, if we come across a specific provision, we will not treat it like a provision for doubtful debts. That specific provision will be treated exactly like a bad debt. So a bad debt is someone you're certain about who's gone bad, number one. Or if you can identify another person who is most likely going to go bad, they are not going to be differentiated. They will be treated just like a bad debt. So in this case, you can treat the specific provision here as an additional bad debt. So your bad debts are not just going to be $1,700, but this $3,100 and this one, they are going to be connected. Let me just write it down over here. So your bad debts, which you are going to include in your income statement, are not just going to be $1,700, but there will be another $3,100, which is the specific provision. That's the actual bad debt, and this is the specific provision, right? The specific provision is going to be treated in accounting exactly like a bad debt. There is no accounting difference between the treatment of a specific provision and the treatment of a bad debt. So in your income statement, you are going to write $4,800 as bad debt, right? And for the remaining debtors, you are going to create a general provision for doubtful debts. यानी कि अभी तक हम जो भी provision for doubtful debts create करते आ रहे थे, like in the previous case, जो क्वेश्चन हमने कल किया था, जब भी provision for doubtful debts एक percentage basis के ऊपर दी होती है, then you treat it like a provision for doubtful debts. But when a specific provision given to you in the form of dollars, it becomes exactly the same like a bad debt. So now your debtors are also going to be subject to another deduction for an additional bad debt called amounting to $3,100. So your trade receivables are going to go down by a further bad debt of $3,100. Specific provision for all practical purposes is just like a further bad debt. So there are two bad debts, $1,700 जो कि during the year आपने write off किए, and $3,100 जो कि आप specific provision के case में आप write off कर रहे हैं. So your trade receivables are going to go down, and your income statement will have an increased amount of bad debts. So we agree on the treatment for the specific provision. A specific provision and a bad debt are indistinguishable as far as accounting treatment is concerned. So give me a green check if you understand. this part. Iman, Farouk, and Hadia, and Misha. Excellent. Excellent. Now comes the next part, the general provision of 5%, and this is exactly how we are going to do जैसे हमने कल वाला किया था. So मैं इसी border margin को यहाँ पे use कर लेता हूँ. So first of all, we need to determine our trade receivables. Our trade receivables are 19,800 originally given in the trial balance. Then they are subtracted $4,000 for goods sent on a sale or return basis, which was wrongly included there. Then there was an irrecoverable debt of $1,700, and then there was a specific provision which is exactly the same. It will be treated exactly the same way as normal bad debt. So that is going to give us the amount of our revised, the correct value of the trade receivables. How much is that? Thank you, Mary. $11,000. Thank you, Asma. $11,000 is the correct value of the trade receivables. And that means when you make the balance sheet in the current assets section, when you show trade receivables there, you're not going to write 19,800, but you will write $11,000 as your trade receivable there. Now, this $11,000 is subject to a 5% provision for doubtful debts this year. So what is the amount of the current year's provision for doubtful debts? 5% of 11,000. That is $550. Thank you, Alina and Asma. $550. And what do we do then? We compare it with the last year's provision. So last year's provision for doubtful debts is already there in the trial balance. You can find it here, $800 here, right? So last year it was $800. So that means the incremental change between the two is, I think, $250, right? That is true, Marine, excellent. It is decreasing by $250, and since this is decreasing by $250, a decrease, and that would mean that we are going to treat it as an income in the income statement. We are going to treat it as an additional income in the income statement. Excellent, Mariam, Amal, and Marine, and yep, excellent, good. So we understand that income statement can now the provision for doubtful debts is not going to go as an expense, but because this year the provision for doubtful debts is showing a decrease, and a decrease of $250. And if your provision for doubtful debts, which represents a likely loss of the future, if that likely loss shows a decrease, then you should treat it as an income. The question over here is, we are clear कि income statement में तो हम उसको as an income treat करेंगे. What are we going to do about the balance sheet? What are we going to put in the balance sheet? Are we going to, which of the three values do we put there? Is this 800, 550, or 250? Which of these three values are going to go to the balance sheet, and how do we treat them? So Asma says $250, and Mehreen Pavez says subtract 550 from trade receivables. That is the answer, correct answer. Excellent, Mehreen. 550 is the current year's provision for doubtful debts, right? $550 is the current year's provision for doubtful debts. 800 was last year's provision for doubtful debts, और चूंकि हम बैलेंस शीट इस साल की बना रहे होंगे तो हमें तो इस साल की provision for doubtful debts चाहिए, and that is going to be subtracted from the trade receivables, just like yesterday. So income statement के अंदर $250 जाएगा as an income, और balance sheet में $550 जाएगा, and we subtract it from our trade receivables in the current asset section. So we understand note 4. Now note 4 has been completely deciphered here. Give me your feedback, please. Minal, nahi samajh aaya? Okay, good. Okay, so this question, that was the only new thing about this question. The rest of the information is all about accrued expenses and prepaid expenses and depreciation charges. So let's get started. We are going to complete this question in the remaining time. We are going to start with the income statement first. I'm going to leave this zoomed in. And once you have reached the gross profit, then you will compare the values with me. Let's get started. जब आप ग्रोस प्रॉफिट पे पहुंच जाएं तो अपना ग्रोस प्रॉफिट चैट में लिख दें और ग्रीन चेक मुझे दे दें. Then I will show you the answer and you can compare your values and we can fix the errors if there are any. Let's get started. When you want to confirm your answer, let me know. All right, Fajr. Let's you carry on afterwards. Make sure there are quite a few other incomes this time, including the provision for doubtful debts. So gross profit के बाद expenses section शुरू करने से पहले आपने other incomes भी include करनी है. So Fajr, if you want to move on, then carry on. Let's wait for a few more people to complete until that part. Then I will show you the answer. Great, Maheen. Very good, Madiha. Very good, Minal, Hadia, Amna Kashif, Selina Wakas, Selina Sayed, Iman Farouk is done. Iman Badr is doing. Marine is done. Marine. Okay, let me bring the answer here. Answers. Okay, here goes. Okay, this is up to the gross profit and the other income section. You have a decrease in the provision for doubtful debts and you have discount received, two other incomes. Your gross profit should come out to be 120032, as is obvious on the screen. And then you should have two other incomes. You should include them. If your answer is fine, great. Otherwise, you can unmute your mic and ask me. I can explain your mistake if there is any. If your answers are so far reconciling with the screen, then you can continue with your profit and loss account section. Profit and loss account section is after the gross profit. So you can continue with that. And once you have reached the net profit, then you give me a green check. I will show you the rest of the income statement.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Alina Wakas. Yes, go ahead.
In the closing inventory, why is 3,000 being added to 5,000? Won't it be 4,000?
Okay. The question over here is how do you value your closing inventory? Your closing inventory is valued on
Oh, okay.
cost.
Yeah.
You got it? Cost. Okay.
Yes, I understand.
Okay,
Yes,
great,
yes.
great, great.
Sorry. Yeah.
Welcome. Welcome. When you reach net profit, then leave a green check on the feedback window. Madiha has already reached net profit. Okay, Madiha, let's wait. Okay, Fajr has also completed the net profit. Let's wait for a couple more finish there, then I'll show you. Mahim Rasaleen is done. Okay, Iman Farouk is also finished. Hadia as well. Let me show you the answer till the end so that you can fix if there are any errors. So I hope all is correct. If there are any issues, try fixing those. If you can't fix them on your own, then let me know, I'll explain.
Sir,
Yeah. Yes, Alina.
Alicia asked a question. Alicia asked a question in the chat.
Oh, acha, sorry. Okay, seventh note. Okay, acha, wait a second. The seventh note here. Okay, seventh note, Alicia, is its depreciation is to be provided on the following basis: leasehold premises 5% straight line, and delivery vans 25% reducing balance method, and office furniture 10% straight line. Okay, so when it comes to straight line method, you will always apply the percentage on their respective costs. So we have straight line method for premises and we have straight line method for office furniture. So we'll find these two. So leasehold premises here, we find leasehold premises, and that's the cost. We are going to charge depreciation on this value. And for furniture is this, right? So this value. So we are going to charge 10% and 5% on these two values. So leasehold premises depreciation will be 5% of $70,000 because straight line method, and office furniture depreciation will be 10% of $3,000, right? But for delivery vans, it's 25% on reducing balance method. So we find the delivery vans. The delivery vans are here. That's your cost. And delivery van's provision for depreciation is 3,600. So delivery van की depreciation हम कैसे calculate करेंगे? $18,000 subtracted the net book value, which is $3,600, and then we are going to calculate the depreciation, which is 25%. So we are going to calculate the van's depreciation like that, whereas for premises and for furniture, we are simply going to take 5% or 10% of their respective costs. We understand, Alicia? Okay, good. Like here, you can see yeah, you can see here depreciation is 5% of the cost, whereas for delivery vans it's 25% of the net book value. The net book value is obtained after subtracting previous year's depreciation from the cost. Office furniture is again on straight line, so 10% of the $3,000 cost. If you have calculated your yeah, Ji Iman.
I have how will we find depreciation of delivery vans?
Okay, do you understand that it's on reducing balance method, right?
Yes.
And when you have to calculate depreciation based on reducing balance method, you will apply the percentage not on the original cost, but on net book value. So how do you calculate net book value? You calculate the net book value. Net book value is basically cost minus depreciation, previous year's depreciation. So this is the cost of the van here, and this is their depreciation here, right? So you will subtract these two values to find the net book value first, and then you take 25% of that remaining net book value. Right, Aman?
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yes, I understand.
स्ट्रेट लाइन के अंदर आप हमेशा कॉस्ट पे परसेंटेज रेट अप्लाई करते हैं. रिड्यूसिंग बैलेंस मेथड के अंदर आप पहले नेट बुक वैल्यू कैलकुलेट करेंगे और उसके बाद फिर आप उस पर 25% अप्लाई करेंगे.
Okay, sir, understood.
Great, great, great. So once you complete your balance sheet, then you let me know. I will show you the balance sheet. Okay, Madhya got the balance sheet balanced. Very good. I will show you the balance sheet once more of your friends reach there. Anyone else finishing up to that point? Maheen got it. Okay. So let me just show you the balance sheet here. Okay, so we're just 5 minutes now to the end of the class. So if you're finished, you can check your values, and if you have some time to finish, then you could take a screenshot here so that you can complete it later. मदीहा एंड माहीन, आपके फिगर्स ठीक है सारे बेटे बैलेंस शीट के? Okay, great. Let's wait for your friends to finish then. Right. Okay, we have 3 minutes to go, so you can take a screenshot, and if you need to ask any question, then you stay back because आखिरी 2-3 मिनट मुझे question session के लिए रखना होता है. So if you have no question, you can leave. If you have no issues to discuss, then you leave, right? Allah Hafiz, bete. Thank you, Asma. Yes, Alina and Fajr, do you have a question here? You want to ask something?
No, sir. Thank
Okay,
you.
okay, okay. See you. Bye bye.